everyone! We're doing a Kickstarter right now for our comic The Magpie, which is a horror romance comic. It is about a lesbian love triangle with an elder god. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please go check it out. The campaign is over on June 11th, so get on it if you want to pledge to it. We'd super appreciate it. There's a link in the description down below. Thank you, goodbye! Onto the video. I wanted to talk about branding. What the heck is branding, and why should you care, young artist? Well, for my day job, I work as a graphic designer in a marketing team. So what I mostly take care of is our visual brand. Yeah. So working for a company, I handle all our brand assets, I design them, I think about our user experience and how to reach out to potential users and stuff. And, I try to design a brand that appeals to the people who will want to use our stuff. And the same kind of principle applies to when you're an artist or you have a comic. You are constantly going to be marketing, and usually that just comes with, posting stuff on social media or posting up your comic or going to conventions. That's all marketing. So if you're already doing it, you got this. You're a marketer. Your brand is really important when you're doing all this stuff because it's basically how you present yourself to your audience. It is how they perceive you and your work. And the visual identity isn't the only thing that goes into branding. It's a major piece, and it's probably what I'll talk about a lot here because that's usually what I deal with. But brand also has to do with your voice as a creator. Are you someone who's my voice as a creator is I'm very cheerful and cutesy and I try to be encouraging, and yeah, so that's my brand of voice. Bones described it today as that hang in there poster, but a human being. That's how I want my brand to be perceived. But your brand can be a whole bunch of other things. If you're someone who likes drawing horror, your stuff could be really dark and edgy. If you're doing cute comics, you probably want it to be really cute and bright and fun. Your brand is just the feeling that your audience gets when they see your work. What all feeds into this, the big monster that is branding? So first off, like I said, there's your voice. So this can be how you interact with your audience, how you talk on social media, the tone of, say, your comic or the tone of your work. This all feeds into branding. There, on the visual side, your art style is probably the major thing that is your brand as an artist. It's how people recognize you compared to other artists is through your style. So if you have a very distinct style, or your style really portrays the tone of voice you want, or portrays the type of work you're doing, that's good branding. So yeah, style really feeds into that quite a lot. Think of your favorite artists. You remember them because they have really distinct styles, and it really showcases kind of their personality, and you'll follow someone if you like their personality and you like the way their art looks, because the tone of what they're doing appeals to you. So when you're working on your art style and what you're planning to put out, really think about what kind of work you want to put out. Okay, that sounds dumb, but really think about the way you want it to be perceived. For me, I wanted to do really manga and shoujo inspired and LGBT stuff, really cutesy, weird stuff. That's what I wanted my brand to be for a long time. So Pretty Mouth and the Magpie fit into that pretty well. Magpie a little less. Pretty Mouth was a little bit on the cute, weird side. But yeah, so really think about the tone you're putting out and I guess why you're going with that tone. I think a lot of times people will just kind of fall into their brand just following what they want to do. So for example, that's how I kind of stumbled across my current brand. Of myself as an artist, was just, working on projects that appealed to me. So, LGBT comics and horror stuff and elder god stuff, and kind of I started building things around that because people were coming back for the weird gay horror stuff. So I was I will work on that and build it up more. Yeah, so I think it does fall on you naturally, but I think once you start to recognize really where you want your brand to go, really refine it, I guess. It's a little different when you're an artist because like your interests can change and your focuses can change, but like, I mean, you can always rebrand, right? Because generally your interests are going to intersect somehow. And if they really don't intersect at all, you can always create like another pen name or account or something. Like there's nothing stopping you from having different like types of art style and different brands that you manage. Like that's totally cool. So yeah, like I said, you'll fall into a lot of it naturally, but it's really important to like cultivate the brand you want so that you're getting the audience that you want. So for example, you know, if you're someone who, I don't know, say you only draw fan art of the Mortal Instruments. And then suddenly you're like, I'm not going to do Mortal Instruments anymore because, I don't know, you don't like the series or something, or your priorities changed, and you're like, I'm only going to do original art, or I'm only going to do this fandom. Like, chances are you're going to lose some followers. And that can be because they were like, I was here to see Mortal Instruments fan art. I'm not interested in your other stuff. Like, that can be really unfortunate. But generally, if you're into, say, something like Mortal Instruments, your original stuff is gonna, like, be along a very similar vein. You know, you're not gonna take, like, a hard right turn towards, like, a whole new interest, I guess. So yeah, I guess don't worry about it too much, but keep it in mind when you are working on things, because you might lose following if you suddenly are jumping all over the place between different, like, different styles or different genres. So be prepared for that, you know? Your audience might be split, and, you know, that can hurt things like revenue and, like, engagement and stuff. I guess talking about it like that sounds really scary, but it isn't super scary because, like I said, because generally your interests will all kind of, like, fall within similar categories or, like, categories that are, like, right beside each other. Don't worry too much about switching focus, I guess. But definitely be aware about it. You know, if say you do change something and you start losing followers, that might be a reason, and you should be conscious of it, I guess. Another nice thing about, like, once you're aware of, like, your branding and where you want to go with it, is it gets a lot easier to, like, pitch your work and sell your work, because you will be able to tell people what it's about really concisely if you have, like, a specific brand. Because if you're like, oh, well, I've actually been running into this a lot. So I went to a bunch of conventions this past month, and, like, I sell Pretty Mouth and the Magpie, which are, like, LGBT horror, and then starting The Scourge of Nightpoint, which is, like, a fantasy action-adventure about cat knights. It's very hard to, like, pitch both of those at the same time. Like, I noticed, like, every time I'd pitch all my comics that were on my table, people would go, like, oh, that's quite a difference between those series. And, like, on one hand, I was probably able to sell to more people because I could say, like, oh, you don't like horror? Well, how about this cute adventure story? So it is nice there, but at the same time, I did get a lot of people who were kind of off-put by things. And it got really hard to pitch everything to people. Because before, when it was just Pretty Mouth and Magpie, I could say, like, oh yeah, we do LGBT horror. And then if they were into it, I could tell them all about it. Whereas now, when people go, like, tell me about all your comics, it's like, do you want the fantasy one or the horror one? And it just gets muddled. It's definitely good to keep your brands separate, I guess. Or just be prepared for yeah. It's definitely easier to pitch when you have stuff that's all in the same line. Especially if, say, like, I don't know, you go to a publisher or something, or you're pitching to, I don't know, an artist or a writer, someone you want to work with. It's a lot easier to say, like, hey, I want to do this project that's in, like, you know, the LGBT horror vein. Look, I have all this successful LGBT horror, like, titles behind me and, like, a following for it. You know, it'll be more likely that they'll take you on and want to work with you because you've proven that you're successful in this genre. So yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents about brand. I could definitely go more into detail about building, like, a visual brand, at least from, like, a company side, because I have done things like made logos and color schemes and, like, visual style guides for brands. So, like, if people are interested, I could do more about that. This one was just supposed to be general, like, what is brand? Why do you care? So yeah, I hope it was informative. If you have any questions about what I'm talking about, definitely ask, because I know marketing can be super scary as a freelancer or like an independent artist. So like, I'm always happy to answer questions if you have any. Marketing is spooky, but it's actually not that spooky. You just need a strategy. So yeah, okay, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or if you'd like to request a video topic, please leave a comment down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you would like more content about comics and art and good stuff. And don't forget to check out the Kickstarter if you're interested. It only goes until this Sunday, June 11th. Wait, June 11th is a Monday? Oh my god. It only goes till June 11th, so get on it if you're interested. We would super appreciate it, because we really want to print this book. Like I said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!